For most of the 20th century, stories were built around a clear idea of the hero. Whether it was Superman, Luke Skywalker, or Captain America, the hero was someone who stood for good, fought evil, and usually won. These characters gave us hope, but in today's world, the perfect good guy doesn't dominate pop culture anymore. Instead, our biggest shows and movies often revolve around anti-heroes, morally gray characters, or even chaotic groups where no one is clearly good. One of the clearest examples of this change is Breaking Bad. When the show begins, Walter White is close to a traditional hero archetype. He's a humble high school chemistry teacher, a family man, and someone the audience immediately sympathizes with. He was diagnosed with cancer, he can't afford treatment, and he was struggling to provide for his kids and wife. It feels like the start of a story where a good man is forced to fight against a cruel world. But Breaking Bad flips this expectation. Instead of becoming a noble figure who sacrifices everything for his family, Walter White slowly transforms into Heisenberg, a ruthless drug kingpin. Each season pulls him deeper into crime, violence, and ego. By the end, Walter admits what the audience has already realized. He didn't break bad for his family. He did it for himself. He wanted power, respect, and control. So why is his story easier to relate with today than one about a pure hero? Part of the answer lies in how modern audiences see the world. The old hero story, where good defeats evil, feels too simple for our times. We live in a world of constant news, scandals, corruption, and social media debates. We see leaders, celebrities, and even role models fall from grace almost every day. When trust in institutions is low, a flawless hero feels fake. We don't believe in Superman saving the day anymore, because in reality, nobody is that pure. Psychologically, characters like Walter White give us something more complex. He represents what many people secretly feel: frustration with being powerless, ignored, or stuck in a system that doesn't reward them. Walter is relatable in this struggle, even if his choices are horrifying. Watching him cross moral lines lets viewers explore their own darker impulses in a safe way. This change isn't just in Breaking Bad. We see it in video games like The Last of Us, where Joel's morally questionable choices define the story. We see it in anime like Death Note, where Light Yagami becomes consumed by his god complex. Even blockbuster films like Joker or ensemble chaos like Game of Thrones thrive because audiences are drawn to flawed, unpredictable characters. Heroes who are purely good feel boring compared to characters who walk the line between right and wrong. Culturally, this also reflects a kind of disillusionment. For decades, the hero was used to promote national values, religion, or political ideas. But as the world becomes more global, connected, and diverse, these old ideals don't unite people the same way. Instead of looking for role models who are perfect, audiences are more interested in characters who are humans, messy, selfish, conflicted, but also capable of greatness. The anti-hero feels more real than the superhero. Take Walter White again, for example. His rise and fall mirror the dangers of ambition, pride, and unchecked desire. He's not someone we should admire, but his story is unforgettable because it reflects truths about human nature. The old hero used to show us who we should be. The modern anti-hero shows us who we really are. But if there was one show that truly buried the good guy forever, it was Game of Thrones. When Game of Thrones first aired, it seemed like it had a classic hero, Ned Stark. He was honorable, loyal, and guided by a clear sense of right and wrong. Ned was the kind of character who, in an older story, would rise to power and save the kingdom. Viewers attached themselves to him as the moral center in a brutal, corrupt world. But by the end of Season 1, Ned Stark was dead, betrayed, executed, and erased from the story. That moment shocked audiences worldwide because it destroyed the old contract between storytellers and viewers. In the past, we expected the hero to survive. We expected his morality to be rewarded. Game of Thrones told us the opposite. In the real world, honor doesn't guarantee survival. Instead of following one shining hero, we followed dozens of characters, each with their own flaws and ambitions. Tyrion, the witty outsider who used humor to cover his pain. Cersei, ruthless and selfish, but also fiercely protective of her children. Daenerys, who rose as a liberator only to fall into tyranny. Jon Snow, who looked like the chosen one, but was constantly broken down by betrayal and impossible choices. The show refused to let any one character be the unquestioned good guy. So why did this work so well? Because audiences were ready for it. By the 2010s, viewers no longer trusted neat black and white storytelling. The world we live in feels unstable and morally complicated. Wars, politics, social media outrage, every issue has multiple sides, and heroes in real life are often exposed as flawed. Game of Thrones tapped into that cultural moment. Psychologically, the chaos of Game of Thrones was part of its appeal. Instead of rooting for one untouchable savior, we had to choose sides, constantly shifting our loyalties. One season, we might admire Daenerys freeing slaves. Another season, we might fear her burning cities. That unpredictability created emotional investment. It felt closer to real life, where people can be both noble and cruel, sometimes in the same breath. Meanwhile, this wasn't just entertainment. Game of Thrones gave audiences a space to process disillusionment. Ned Stark's death mirrored what happens when integrity collides with systems built on power. Jon Snow's struggles reflected the frustration of leaders trying to be good in a world that doesn't reward it. Even the shocking finale, where Daenerys' dream of justice turned into destruction, forced audiences to confront the danger of blind faith in heroes. Compared to old-school fantasy like The Lord of the Rings, where good wins over evil in a straightforward way, Game of Thrones felt raw and modern. Frodo carries the ring to Mount Doom because he's pure-hearted, but in Westeros, a pure heart gets you killed. Audiences weren't just watching for dragons and battles, they were watching because the show reflected a deeper truth. Power corrupts, and morality is fragile. This change isn't limited to Westeros. We see it across modern media. In anime like Attack on Titan, heroes become monsters. In games like Red Dead Redemption 2, the protagonist is an outlaw struggling with morality. Even in superhero films, characters like Batman or Deadpool attract more interest than squeaky clean icons. The straight good guy story feels outdated because it doesn't match the world people experience. With Game of Thrones, the death of the hero became mainstream. It proved that audiences were not only ready, but hungry for stories without guarantees, without safety nets. Instead of comfort, they wanted confrontation. Instead of purity, they wanted complexity. While Game of Thrones killed the idea of the noble hero in fantasy, Invincible ripped it apart in the world of superheroes. For decades, superheroes were the last safe space for traditional good guys. Superman was pure. Spider-Man fought for justice. Captain America stood for values bigger than himself. Even when flawed, they always came back to do the right thing. But Invincible, the animated series based on Robert Kirkman's comic, asks a darker question. What if the most powerful hero we admire is not a savior, but a threat? The show introduces us to Mark Grayson, a teenager discovering his powers. His father, Omni-Man, is Earth's greatest protector, a Superman figure with unstoppable strength, flight, and the respect of the entire world. At first, Invincible feels like a classic coming-of-age superhero story. The young hero learns responsibility, guided by his wise, heroic dad. Then, in the shocking finale of the first episode, Omni-Man brutally murders the Guardians of the Globe, the world's superhero team. The scene is violent, disturbing, and unforgettable. Not just because of the gore, but because it tears down the expectation that heroes will always protect us. Omni-Man, the character who looked like the ultimate good guy, is revealed to be something closer to a tyrant. This betrayal hits harder than almost anything in superhero media. In a world where scandals, corruption, and abuse of power are exposed daily, the idea of an all-powerful savior feels suspicious. Invincible turns that suspicion into a story. Meanwhile, Omni-Man isn't a guardian of Earth, but a colonizer, preparing the planet for conquest. His love for his son is real, but twisted by a belief that domination is destiny. He wants to be the classic hero saving people, believing in good, but the story keeps showing him the cost. Innocent people die, villains aren't always punished, and the line between right and wrong is never clean. The famous train scene where Omni-Man forces Mark to witness mass death drives this home. Power isn't about saving everyone, it's about deciding who lives and who dies. That's the opposite of the heroic fantasy, and it shakes both Mark and the audience. In older superhero tales, the answer was simple. Yes, the hero will protect us. In Invincible, the answer is terrifying. Maybe no one will. This doesn't mean people don't want heroes anymore. Mark is still trying. He still represents the desire for good, even if he keeps failing. But the story shows us that being a hero today doesn't mean being flawless. It means struggling against impossible odds, even when the system itself is rotten. That's more relatable, more raw, and far more viral than a cape-wearing savior who never makes mistakes. Even though Invincible showed us the nightmare of a Superman gone wrong, The Boys took it further. At first glance, The Boys looks like a parody of Marvel or DC. There's a team of superheroes called the Seven, clearly modeled after the Justice League. You've got a speedster, a warrior goddess, and most importantly, Homelander, the Superman stand-in. He wears the flag, smiles for cameras, and pretends to be the symbol of hope, but the mask slips quickly. Homelander is insecure, violent, and addicted to power. Behind closed doors, he's a predator. The show's genius is that it doesn't make these heroes villains in the usual sense. They're worse than that. Their image is managed by Vought, a mega company that sells them like brands. They star in movies, appear in ads, and pose for social media campaigns. When The Boys shows a superhero accidentally killing civilians during a botched rescue, it feels uncomfortably close to the headlines we already see. The hero myth collapses when power is treated like a business. Meanwhile, this flips our relationship with superheroes. For decades, we looked up to them as aspirational figures we could trust. The Boys force us to see them as flawed humans, amplified by fame and unchecked power. The appeal comes not from believing in them, but from watching ordinary people push back against the unstoppable. Instead of being inspired by the hero, we are rooting for those trying to survive the damage the heroes cause. On a different note, The Boys is also a satire. It takes the superhero genre and exposes it. We cheer for Marvel movies, but deep down, we know corporations are profiting off our desire for hope. The show exaggerates this to make the point clear. Maybe we shouldn't worship capes at all. And it's not just about superheroes. It's about disillusionment with the very idea of the good guy in modern society. If Breaking Bad showed how ambition corrupts one man, and Game of Thrones showed how honor fails in politics, The Boys shows how entire systems twist the hero myth for profit. That's why it feels so timely, and why clips of Homelander go viral again and again. The irony is that The Boys still gives us glimpses of what a real hero might look like. Starlight, for example, genuinely wants to save people, but even she is trapped in the machine, constantly pressured to play the role the company writes for her. Being good isn't enough because in this world, good is only allowed if it sells. That's the final nail in the coffin for the old hero archetype. Meanwhile, Arcane takes this idea in a different direction. It doesn't just kill the image of the perfect hero, it shows us a world where heroes might not even exist at all. At first glance, Arcane looks like a classic good versus evil story. Piltover, the shining city of progress, is the land of order and invention. Zaun, the Undercity, is the land of chaos and crime. You would expect a simple setup. Noble heroes rise from Piltover to fight villains from Zaun. But from the first episode, the show makes it clear, things aren't that simple. V, Jinx, Jace, Victor, none of them are pure good or pure evil. They're all products of systems that are broken, divided, and unjust. V is tough and loyal, but her violence fuels the very cycle she hates. Jinx is unstable and destructive, but her pain comes from abandonment and betrayal. Jace wants to help his city with science, but his ambition and pride lead him into compromises. Victor dreams of a better future, yet risks turning himself into something monstrous to get there. Every character is both sympathetic and dangerous. That's the heart of Arcane. There's no chosen one, no savior who rises above it all. Instead, the story lives in the gray space, where people are just trying to survive, protect those they love, or chase dreams that may destroy them. We don't live in a simple battle of good and evil. We live in a time of inequality, broken systems, and conflicts where every side believes it's right. Heroes don't rise above these systems, they're trapped in them. This feels more honest than the old hero story. In earlier media, a hero like Superman or Frodo could stand outside the system and fix it with their goodness. But in Arcane, every character is shaped by their trauma, their class, and their choices. Moreover, Arcane also speaks to our exhaustion with simple answers. In politics, in the media, even in personal life, we know things are messy. We know solutions aren't easy. Stories that show heroes winning through purity feel disconnected. They admit that people can mean well and still cause harm. They admit that villains are often victims first. That honesty makes the story feel alive, and that's why it's spread far beyond League of Legends fans into mainstream culture. Take the final scene of Season 1, Jinx firing a rocket at the Council. It's not a hero moment. It's not a villain moment. It's a tragedy. It's the result of pain, miscommunication, and cycles that no one character could stop. In older stories, this would be the point where a hero saves the day. In Arcane, no one does. And that's exactly why it hits so hard. This brings us back to the death of the hero. Across all examples, Walter White, Ned Stark, Omni-Man, Homelander, and Jinx, the message is the same. We no longer trust perfect saviors. We no longer believe in black and white morality. We want stories that reflect the complexity, struggle, and messiness of real life. That doesn't mean hope is gone. In Arcane, V still fights for her sister. Victor still dreams of saving lives. Even in the darkest moments, there are sparks of something better. But the flawless good guy who always wins is gone. In their place, we have characters who are broken, conflicted, and human. And maybe that's the point. Maybe what we need now isn't the hero we used to worship, but stories that remind us no one is perfect, but everyone is trying.